Someone died at Lohagad Fort on June 18. A man on a trek with his fiancée. He didn't come back. And as the story unfolded over the next few days, the arrests, the allegations, the Instagram posts, one question kept coming up everywhere. Why didn't she just say no? Not at the fort, earlier, much earlier, before the engagement, before the families met, before any of this was set in motion. Why didn't she just say, this isn't what I want? She had a boyfriend, she was already in love with someone else, and she still said yes to marrying a man she didn't choose. This is not a story about a girl who wasn't sure. It's a story about a girl who was completely sure and still couldn't say no. Let's start with the simplest question. If she had a boyfriend, why didn't she just tell her family? Think about what that would have required. Walking up to her parents and saying, I am in a relationship, I love someone, I don't want an arranged marriage. In many Indian homes, that conversation is not easy. Not because parents are bad people, not because they wouldn't listen, but because the child never knows how they will be received. Maybe that was a reason. Maybe there was something else entirely. We don't know what was going on in her mind, but we do know one thing. She didn't say it. And in India, she is not alone in that silence. And when you're not sure how the people you love will receive the most important truth about your life, you don't say it. Because in many homes, you don't really get to decide these things. They are already decided. And maybe the parents would have understood, maybe they would have listened, maybe they would have been okay with the person she had chosen. But she didn't know that. And to be fair, this is changing. More parents today are open to these conversations than ever before. More families are willing to listen. More children are speaking up and being heard. But not every home is there yet. And for the ones that aren't, the child doesn't get to be honest. They just get to be obedient. And obedience held for long enough becomes its own kind of trap. So she did what countless young Indians do. She kept it hidden. The boyfriend stayed a secret. The relationship stayed invisible. And life at home continued as if none of it existed. And for a while, that works. Until the arranged marriage conversations start. And suddenly, the hiding becomes a lot harder to maintain. Because now there's a real person in front of her, a real family across the table, real dates being discussed, real invitations being planned, and she is being asked, what do you think? And the honest answer, I'm in love with someone else, is still not something she can say. So she says yes, not because she wants to, not because she's unsure, but because the truth feels impossible to speak out loud. She waits, she hopes, she goes along, and going along slowly becomes the only thing she knows how to do. And that is the real story here. Not the fort, not the crime, not the Instagram post. The real story is what happens to a person when they spend years learning that certain truths about themselves are not safe to share, even with the people closest to them. Because here is what years of hiding does to a person. It doesn't just keep a secret, it slowly closes the door on honesty itself. By the time she is sitting across from that arranged marriage proposal, she has already spent years practicing silence, years of choosing the safe answer over the true one, years of being someone slightly different at home than who she actually is. Saying yes to the proposal was not a new decision. It was the same decision she had been making every single day to keep the peace, to protect the secret, to avoid the conversation that felt too dangerous to have. Now, here is where it gets very specific to India. We have a word for the kind of girl who tells her parents about boyfriend before marriage. We call her bold, we call her rebellious, sometimes worse. And we have a word for the kind of girl who goes along with what the family decides. We call her sensible, grounded, a good daughter. So the girl who hides her relationship and says yes to someone she doesn't want is not making a weak choice. She is making the choice that her entire environment trained her to make. She is being the good daughter, right until the point where being the good daughter became unbearable. And when it became unbearable, she had no tools to handle it because nobody had ever taught her what to do when the life you have been performing stops feeling livable. What happened at Lohagad Fort is not justified by any of this. A man lost his life, a family lost their son. That is not a complexity, that is a tragedy. But this episode is not asking whether what happened was right or wrong. That answer is obvious. This episode is asking how did someone get to a place where this felt like the only way out? And the answer to that question begins not at the fort, not at the engagement, not even at the arranged marriage proposal. It begins at the moment, years earlier, when she first understood that the truth about who she loved was not something she could safely say out loud. That was the first trap. Everything else followed from there. We keep asking why she didn't say no, but we never ask what kind of home or what kind of fear makes a no feel impossible. We never ask what we are building when children grow up not knowing whether the most important truths about their life will be welcomed or rejected by their own family. We never ask what happens when a secret becomes too heavy to carry. We want our children to talk to us, but we forget to create a home where they actually can. None of this is a justification for what happened. What happened was a crime. A man lost his life. A man who showed up that day with no reason to be afraid, who trusted the person he was walking with. That trust cost him everything. But understanding how someone gets to that point is the only way to make sure someone else doesn't. Secrets don't disappear, they just build up until something breaks. That's the flip. Subscribe for more conversations like this. I'll see you in the next one.